Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Red Paladin guide here on Ethic TV. Yes, you heard that right. I'm going to show you all the good stuff about the Red Paladin in vanilla World of Warcraft. And I will show you the tips and tricks to make this class somewhat viable. If the Fury Warriors like it or not, you're going to steal gear from them. I'm just going to say a few words to the class, because all jokes aside, you need to know some stuff, otherwise you will probably get quite disappointed over time. So let us jump right in, let's go. Now first of all, let me say this. Playing a Red Paladin, you really gotta be sure that you want to do this. Let me start by saying that you will need to min-max hard, as you will always be a little bit inferior to pure DPS classes, obviously. Now, if this is not a problem for you and you're looking for something fresh, then the Red Paladin is definitely a challenge to go for. Before you choose to play Red Paladin though, let me say that you just have to know and have to realize that pure DPS classes are usually going to deal a lot more damage than you will. If you put a player with the same level of skill on a Red Paladin and on a Fury Warrior, the Fury Warrior will obviously always come out on top. Let me just start out with the pros a Red Paladin can provide you as a player. It is definitely a class that needs to min-max hardcore. So if you're the kind of player that likes to theorycraft a lot, this is definitely something for you to be viable. So the Red Paladin is definitely something very fresh and will give you something new to do in the game. Maybe you're waiting for Black Relay release or AQ release on whatever server you're playing on. So this is a very cool thing to play as an alt, definitely. The biggest pro is probably it is a challenge. Now, as I said many times now, it is fresh and it is a challenge to make this class viable. You need a lot of gear, you need to theorycraft a lot, and you need to pop some consumables to make it viable. But if you do all of this, then you can definitely beat most of the mediocre pure DPS classes if they don't bring their A game. Which leads me to the next point, which is Red Paladins are fun and unique to play. Despite people saying, hey, you just auto-attack, it is actually very fun to play it in PvP and PvE as well, since you have the Consecration spell and you have these big sock proc numbers and a lot of other stuff. You are very versatile, you can off-tank if needed, you can off-heal if needed. And there's just a lot of stuff that you can do to help out your group, especially in PvP, together with some MS and Fury Warriors. It is definitely a very cool class to play. And finally, obviously, it is a very good class to make people rage and feed on their tears afterwards. So if you want to play Red after this, let's jump right into the PvE side of things and the comprehensive guide for that, and let's go! So, alright, let's talk about the PvE side of things, the glorious Retribution Paladin. Now, first of all, let's clarify a little bit what your role is here, because I think most Red Paladins just want to wield some big ass sword and hit things. Obviously, DPS is one of your, biggest tasks, but don't forget that you are also a dispeller. Now, I'm not saying that you should be constantly dispelling, and then when your raid lead says, well, you're a paladin, all you have to do is dispel, because then you won't deal any damage, and they will say, oh, your damage is too low, etc, etc. But on bosses like Gar, if you see the tank is not getting dispelled, for example, just toss him a small dispel real quick and make sure your raid leader knows about it. Aside from that, you should always try to maximize your DPS. Keep in mind though that in earlier patches, when there is a very low debuff limit on the bosses, you cannot judge Crusader, but I'll talk about that a bit more later. Aside from that, if you can get your hands on a Nightfall, that should be the thing that you want. This is something that makes a Red somewhat usable and viable for the raid. Here is where you can actually shine and offer your guild to wield the Nightfall in the raids, so that you can keep the 15% spell damage taken buff on the raid bosses, and your casters will love you for it, so that kind of gives you a valid point there. If your guild doesn't give a shit, then obviously try to get that sick bone revo or something. you know, the fat blades that are even better than Nightfall, and wield that a little bit. That is gonna increase your DPS even more. But try to stick with the Nightfall, that actually makes you valuable for the raid. Also, you can be used as an emergency backup healer in case your guys' guild is fresh or whatever. You can always offer to, you know, be a backup healer with a proper healing set. You can actually be a pretty good healer, and you know, if you're still struggling through some content, offer, okay, hey, I can actually be a healer for a while and then I switch to DPS. Also, for things like the imps in Molten Core, you can get your defense set out and tank those imps, and maybe you can off-tank at some boss which has a lot of ads. Let us talk about the race. Yes, racism, here it comes. The only viable choice if you want to be a PvE Red Paladin is to be human, to be honest. Those +5 on 200 mace and 200 swords is just too good. It results in direct 3% hit and reduced glancing blows, and since auto attack does make up about 50% of your damage, this is a pretty you know, imperative thing to have. You want the 3% hit. There's sadly not a way around it. Keep in mind that Edge Master Gauntlets don't help you either, since it is only affecting one-handed sword, so it should be. If you're just, you know, out there for the PvP, why not pick a dwarf? Sure, no problem. You know, you can try it out a little bit if you're happy to be a dwarf, and the stone form comes in real handy, obviously in PvP, to remove the poison. If your guild is not really, like, you know, try hard, which it probably isn't. If they allow a red in the raid, then it is probably not, you know, we're aiming for server first here, so maybe a dwarf could work. You have to think about that yourself. Alrighty, now let's get into the stat priorities. Since I want to kind of keep this video short, for questions, feel free to contact me on Elysium. My name, you should see it in the video running in the background. I can give you a little bit more detailed answers to this, but the stat priority. So basically what you want to do is, like every melee, you want to get hit capped first, so that your glorious sock procs do not miss the target anymore, because you can really not afford to miss anything, so hit cap is really important. Now there's two hit caps. First of all, the hit cap if you're wielding an axe. Since you're not wielding a sword, then you will need 9%, 8.6%, so 9%. If you're wielding a sword, you basically gain 3% hit, so you need 6% wielding a sword or a mace. So that is the number one stat there. After you're hit capped, obviously you want to get as much crit as possible, and there's the only reason for it being you want a huge and tremendous vengeance uptime. That's what you're really aiming for. Vengeance increases the damage you deal by 15%, physical and holy, so that actually increases your auto attack, your sock procs, your consecration, your judgments, everything. So you want a big uptime on that. Just to keep in mind for you, 20 agility is 1 crit, so it's actually not that hard to gain. Many paladins that I've seen around, they just prioritize strength over everything. But keep in mind that you really need like around 28-29% self-buffed crit, you know, without any buffs, to, you know, have a good vengeance uptime and to actually kick ass in PvE. Keep in mind that if you don't have vengeance up, everything, all your damage is significantly lower. And to be honest, when Rets start to crit and you have a big crit streak, you'll actually see your damage go up high in the damage meters. If it doesn't happen, then obviously you are open to the flames of the Fury Warriors. After agility, you obviously want to stack strength as much as you can. As a paladin, you gain 2 attack power per 1 strength. On top of that comes your talent choice of 10% increased strength, which you have to take, kind of. And also, if you are a raiding paladin, then you get a king's buff from a friendly holy paladin, which also increases your strength by another 10%. Take in mind that in case you have any other world buffs or whatever that also increase your stats, like the G buff I believe does it, that also increases it. So essentially you're gaining 2.2% ATP from 1 strength. And now the big discussion starts. Obviously, there's different approaches to the Red Paladin. You can stack, you can actually play a Shockadin, that's something a little bit different. Then there's a red spec where you utilize Seal of the Righteousness. This is the warrior kind of red build. So I'm not going to go into much of the spell damage. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about it, how it works. But there's other builds that actually build completely or more on spell damage than this one. So the next set that you want to stack is Intellect. Intellect because you want a somewhat bigger mana pool, because when you have already played Red Paladin in PvE, you will notice that you go rather quickly, but you can actually prevent that if you're gear a little bit smart. Let me say that a lot of Red Paladins just stack items with strength and crit, which is good, but sometimes you want to look out for those items that, like the rank 10 set pre-update, which is currently out on Elysium, for example, has a lot of intellect on it, and also the 2 set bonus has a small int bonus. There's int on the boots, int on the shoulders, compared to just wearing Vela shoulders. That is actually a really good choice. So having a lot of int is actually useful. You should not sacrifice agility, strength, or hit nonetheless. Last but definitely not least, the spell damage. Spell damage can actually be good. You should definitely pick it up where you can, but not like start wearing a Briarwood Reed or anything, just pure spell damage. That is totally not worth. The reason being, if you go for this build, Sock has a 20% spell damage coefficient, I think on Elysium it's like 25-ish. I actually tested this. And the Consecration should have like 33% spell damage coefficient, meaning that this goes on top of your Consecration damage or Sock damage. On Elysium, for example, the Consecration coefficient at the moment is 50%. I also tested this, which means, when you can get a little bit of spell damage, like you're going for rank 13 gear or something, there's also some spell damage on the gear, which comes in really handy on top, but you don't want to sacrifice for it. The point of spell damage is, when you can get it on top, it also increases your Sock damage kind of significantly, and also your Consecration, which you are spamming even at low ranks, profits from it, so you can actually afford to spam some low rank Consecration and not go and have that extra spell power on it. In addition to that, also your Judgment profits from it quite a bit. I think 42% spell damage coefficient, so that really, it's a nice upgrade whenever you can get it. And again, there's a lot of controversy around this. This is my build, this is how I like it. This worked for me as a raiding paladin, and I got to top midfield and sometimes even into the first 10, first 8 in DPS. Now let us go into the pre-raid biz gear list, or actually maybe also a little bit of raiding gear biz list. First, let me say again that there's different methods and different ways to gear. Nothing's like really bad. You should actually know there's what stats you need, but I'll just go through the list of stuff that I got for myself before I actually started raiding, and that worked out pretty well for me. Let's start with the Lionheart Helm, obvious choice. I think crafted, this is a must-have item. This is the first thing that you should get. Then Mark of Forging, you get it from the In Dreams questline, must-have item at the start. Gives you a 1% crit and solid 26 attack power. Now, let's talk about the shoulders a little bit, because there's a lot of different opinions on this. I just happen to like PvP, and I wanted to do rank 11 anyway. So as you can see, there's 12 strength, 12 agility, some stamina, and also int on it. And the 2-set bonus is pretty cool. It gives you another crit and 6 int. Alternatives for this are obviously the Black Dragon Scale set, which provides you with crit and hit as the set bonus. So I would recommend either the rank 10 if you like PvP. If it's too much of a grind for you, you probably want to go with the Black Dragon Scale, shoulders, and the boots. Then you get a 1% hit set bonus, I think. More than that doesn't really make sense. You'll see why in a second, but it's not bad to get a 3-set bonus from the Black Dragon Scale set either. It's just not what I prefer, and this is what I felt the most min-maxed way of grinding it. But obviously you need to do rank 10. I don't know if you want to do that. Next up we have the Cape of the Black Baron, obvious choice. You should actually start grinding this item after you got your Lionheart helm or while you're doing it, because Strat UD takes a while, and once you got this item, you're done with it, and it's almost the worst one to farm. So 15 agility, that's almost a crit, and 20 attack power. Then we're moving on to the chest. Now there's also a couple of different opinions on this. You can get the carapace from Ubers, but I prefer the Ogreforged Hauberk because it provides me with 8 strength, which is like around 20 attack power. On top of that is 20 agility, so that there's 1 crit already, and there is another crit on it, so 2 crit from this, and around 20 attack power. And what makes this, like, the little cherry on top is basically the 8 intellect. This one comes in real handy as well. It's 80 more mana, and that gets increased by the talents if you choose to spec it. Then we got the Battleborn Bracers. These ones are from Ubers. You get a hit and a crit, pretty straightforward. Once you are actually hit capped and you are actually have too much hit, I'd recommend either Warsong Exalted for the sick bracers. There's really good bracers with a lot of agility and strength on it, or something different, just to get maybe some strength in, but these are good for a while. Now let's go to the weapon slot. This is obviously the most important one. Now I got the Bone Reaver's Edge. Obviously I got very lucky in our alt raids. Someone passed for me, I called it lucky. Okay, cool. But to start out with, I definitely recommend, depending on the patch, the server you're playing on. If you are playing on a fresh server and nothing is out yet, then probably the Arcanet Reaper is one of the best items. Secret tip is also the War Blade of Caer Darrow. This is pretty cool if you don't want to spend a lot of money. It's a rather quick sword, I think like 3.3 speed, but it has quite high end damage and I think frost damage on top of the damage, which your sock profits from, I think, or at least it gets added to it. And it has actually pretty good DPS for a starter weapon. If anything else is out, like AV, you want to get the Ice Barbed Spear as quickly as possible. It's almost as good as a Reaper and basically a welfare item from doing one Korek or whatever that quest is. So Ice Barbed Spear or Arcanet Reaper. Other good choices are the Obsidian Edged Blade, for example. It provides you with 8 swords. This is actually a really good blade for paladins, red paladins, because with the 8 swords you get 13 plus swords in total, and that results in almost no more glancing blows, which is really good for your auto attacks. Also it has 42 strength, which is around 100 attack power. For the weapon, let me say maybe this, the slower the weapon the better. It depends if the patch you are playing on is normalized weapon damage or not normalized. If it is not normalized weapon damage, then you want a very slow weapon because it will scale more with your attack power. You will just hit harder, but in general you can say the slower the weapon the better. It doesn't matter so much for a paladin, but obviously Bone Reaver's Edge is 3.4 speed, but the damage just outscales everything else, and has a crit and the armor pen debuff, or buff actually. Here we have the Egon's Blaster. It's obtainable from a quest in Eastern Plaguelands from Stratholme. You can get this and you can make people glow green. Alright, obvious trinket choices: the Black Hand's Breath, obtainable from a quest. And the Hand of Justice, probably the best trinket for a long time for the Red Paladin. 2% chance to get an extra swing and 20 attack power. Please note that those extra swings can actually proc sock, and those sock procs can actually proc another attack, and so on and so on. Don Julio's Band from Alterac Valley, must-have items, so if you're a Red Paladin you want to grind AV to Exalted, you kind of have to. Then we got Magni's Will. Alternatively, you can wear basically any ring that you want to have, but this one has 1% crit. You can also get a Pain Weaver band, obviously, depending on what is out. A really good alternative to the Magni's Will, if you still need hit, or a little bit of crit, is the Tarnished Elven Ring. Obviously, it has 1 hit and 15 agility. That is almost a crit, so basically 1 hit, 1 crit. Here we got the rank 7 boots that I was talking about earlier. They also have 15 strength, 6 agility, 16 stamina, 7 int. Alternatively, you can get the Battle Chasers boots, which are actually a little bit better because they have agility on it, I think like 13 or something, but this one gives me the set bonus, so, you know, they cost 100 gold, I didn't bother. Then we got the legs. Now I did rank a 10, so I got the legs, 7 strength, that's pretty solid, and of course it has 2% crit on it, so that's what I liked. Alternatively, if you're not a PvPer, you can get the Eldritch blah 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 plate legs from DM West End boss. Then we got the belt, also obtainable from a quest in Lower Blackrock Spire. And then we got the Gargoyle Slashers. Those are the best in slot pre-raid gloves, although they are leather. There's also alternatives. I think also Lower Blackrock Spire, the end boss, drops some pretty sick ones in plate. Now, one thing that I wanted to mention regarding the gear, if you are on a server where the Arathi Basin rewards are already out, then you definitely want to go and grind that to Exalted as well, because the 3 set, the shoulders, the boots and the belt, I think, those are gonna be your best choices because they give you a set bonus with crit and have all the stats on them that you need, and a lot of them. Okay, very good, you're still here. So next up would be the Enchants. Now there's a lot of talk about that as well, as you might imagine, especially about the weapon, a lot of theory crafting going on. Let me say that in vanilla the head and leg enchant are quests, so don't, you know, actually stop bothering enchanters for those enchants, they can't do it. You probably want to get the 8 strength or the 8 agility one for your head and the legs. If you are not at the crit cap, I would probably recommend the agility one, but the strength one is good as well. Then we got the cloak, 3 agility, nothing else to say to that really. Chest, 3 or 4 stats, depending how good your chest is. If it's really good, then you can actually put 4 stats on it. Then we got the bracers, 9 strength, and the boots, also 7 agility. Now the thing is, if you are a red paladin and you have the correct talents, then you can get the run speed. So that means on the boots you can actually get agility instead of the run speed because you have that in your talents. That is pretty cool, 7 agility it is. Also, we got the 7 agility on the gloves. And now let's get to the weapon enchant. Now this one, as I said, has a lot of theory crafting going on about it. Very important is to note that it always depends on the server, how it is scripted and what is going on. Now, the thing that you probably read is life stealing is a really good red enchant. Now, I wouldn't agree on Elysium, but I remember on Nostarius, for example, it did scale with spell damage, and since I was rank 13 paladin there, I actually did have some spell damage, and it scaled with the life stealing enchant. So I actually hit the boss for, I think it was like 180 to 100, 220 when it crits, 130, something around that, per life stealing proc, and it procced a lot. I think it's around like 8 per minute. If that scales on your server, it's definitely the best one, because also the life stealing enchant proc can proc vengeance, which gives you a better vengeance uptime, and as we learned, that's what we want to do. If you are very short on money, I would probably recommend either life stealing or a fiery enchant, but not for raiding obviously, because Molten Core, Black Lair, you know how it is, everything is fire immune. But for PvP, for example, fiery weapon is actually a really good choice. If you don't have any gloves, then you can also make yourself disarm immune. That is not very important for a Retribution Paladin, because if they disarm you, you can actually just repentance them and, you know, heal to full, or bob yourself for a little while and heal to full. You can time your abilities around it, but if you want to be safe, you can get a weapon chain, obviously. Other than that, probably Crusader is the way to go on all well-scripted servers, because it, you know, it just gives you so much strength, and you get a couple of hits in. It's not as good as for Fury Warriors, for example, but the only alternative that I could figure out was the 25 agility enchant. Sadly, that's not out on Elysium at the moment, but that is a really good way to boost your crit up to 28, 29, 30% even. And if you have 30% crit, you're gonna feel it. And the 25 agility enchant actually is pretty good, because it also boosts your auto attack, which I already said you're doing a lot of, and the more you crit, the better, really. And 25 agility is 1 point to 5% crit. So that is a really good alternative. I think it is not necessarily better than Crusader. It always depends on your gear. If you have 30% already, you probably want to go with Crusader. But if you are really low on crit, why not go with 25 agility? Also, it looks cool. Alright, then let us look at the talents. There's actually a couple of options you have here. And again, it depends on your playstyle. You can change a few points around if you want. I believe that as Fan's guide, he talks about how you should not spec into the improved intellect or the 10% intellect in the holy tree because you don't have a lot of it. While that is true when you're standing around on your own, if you're in a raid and you have intellect buff from the mage, and for example Zulgur buff or Kings, and maybe you're using the consumable that gives you another 25 int. It really depends, but if you're a raiding paladin, raiding red paladin, then you probably should actually take those points, because in a raiding situation you have much more intellect, and if you then have around 160 or something, and you get 10% on top of that, you know, it's a nice to have thing. Why not take it? It's a little bit more mana. If you don't want the spellcasting interruption and you're not PvPing very much, then you definitely want the intellect. Next up is the consecration. That is obvious. This is basically your kind of, you know, dot or constant filler of your slow auto attacks, basically. So you want to downrank that and use it. Next up in the protection tree, the obvious 5 points to get the 3% hit. As you can see, the precision must have talent, unless you are totally overcapped on hit and you maybe got the Onyxia neck. Then you can probably at some point spec out of it and get some more, you know, healing stuff or whatever you wanna spec into. If you take Readout or the improved devotion aura, is really up to you. I just, you know, like to tank the imps, and then I just take the Readout. I don't know. It's also cool for PvP if you're healing. Next up in the red tree, we got the improved might, obviously. While this can also do a holy paladin, if you're really sure that this one holy paladin is always with you, then you can probably spec out of it and place your points elsewhere where you want them to be. But to be sure, I would just spec it and you know, maybe be the paladin buffing improved wisdom to the raid. You can kind of sell that to your raid lead. 5 points into the mana cost right next to it. That's what you want to have. Below that we have the improved seal of the Crusader, which definitely is, no, it's a must-have talent, especially when you have more debuff slots. You can actually judge the Crusader, which is a huge damage boost for you. Now you can actually go 1 or 2 points into the improved judgment. I felt like you're not judging on cooldown anyway, because you'll most likely run if you judge the max rank. So might as well, you know, just have 1 second longer cooldown. It doesn't really matter for PvP, however, we'll get into that. Below that we have the 5% crit, seal of command, pursuit of justice, and the regular stuff. I like to take repentance even as a PvE red paladin, because it's just very good for open world PvP in case you get ganked, etc. It's just very nice. Also for 5-man dungeons, you can actually see something if shit hits the fan. Alternatively, you can also spec like this. This is what I talked about in the Holy Tree. You have the improved spellcasting interruption. And then we got the PvP talents. If you look in the Holy Tree, I spec'd into the improved Holy Light and Flash of Light, because when you want to pre-mate, you can actually put on your healing gear, and with that talent, you're somewhat efficient. What you can also do is you can take the points out of the Retribution tree that you see here and put them into Illumination, which makes you basically a normal healer for PvP, but you can also switch back to DPS if you want to. Eye for an Eye is a really good talent in the Retribution tree, because with all these pesky frost mages around, this makes it really easy to give them something of their own frostbolts back. And if you want, you can spec into the debuff that lowers the target's strength and agility, which also comes in really handy. Alright, then let us go over the consumables. Now, as I said, the Red Paladin is actually a class where you really need to min-max and try hard a little bit. This should be fun for you. If it's not, then I don't really know if it's the right class. But anyway, you know, I'm gonna tell you some stuff that you can actually easily farm and doesn't make you completely poor. So let us start out by the Juju Mites and the Juju Powers. The Jujus that give you the 30 strength are farmed by the Winterfall Furbolgs in Winterspring. And first you have to do the quest Luck Be With You, then you get some sort of object which enables you to loot echoes from all creatures in Winterspring. So the thing is, you go to the Furbolgs in Winterspring, you farm them, they drop the echoes. You can do this in a group, they drop for both, or you know, everyone in the group, so you can actually do this in a group really quickly. And the good thing is, when you turn those in and you kill those Furbolgs, they also drop the Winterfall Fire Water, which then in turn give you 35 attack power, or you just sell them on the auction house. They're usually a really good seller, and if you get like, you farm for an hour and you have a stack of Juju Mite, the strength one, then you can actually probably get 10 Winterfall Firewater, which you can sell for around 290, 250, maybe 3 gold a piece. So you basically made 30 gold right there. Alternatives to the Winterfall Firewater, in case you want to sell that, is that you can then also go into the, I believe, what is it, south of Winter Spring or something, and kill those giants in a raid, and they drop the giant echoes, and you get the Juju power and the attack power bonus from it, so that you can sell the Winterfall Firewater, get some money while farming, and get your consumables done. And that's basically the basic stuff that you really need. If you want to go extra tryhard, you can also grind some of those Frost Sabers and get the Flurry Echo. This increases your melee haste by 3% for 20 seconds only, but it's pretty cool for like bosses if you just want to, you know, be extra tryhard and show someone that you are taking it seriously. I wouldn't necessarily recommend farming those, but you can do it. The next must-have consumable though would be the Argent Dawn Strength buff food. I think they're called Sunfruit. Blessed Sunfruit, and you need Revered with the Argent Dawn to get them. They increase your strength by 8. Aside from that, you can also get some Mongoose Pots. This is what every good melee wants to have, really. Then there's the Elixir of Giants. I wouldn't necessarily recommend this one because it doesn't stack with the strength Jujus, so don't bother, and they cost gold. If you don't want to farm the Jujus, you can buy the Elixir of the Giants. Either way, either you want to invest time or you want to invest gold, up to you. What else you can get is the Roids, or the respective other buffs of the Blasted Lands. The Elemental Way and Sharpening Stones are giving you, I think, 3% crit on top, which is really nice. If you want to, you know, save your money a little bit, you can also just get the regular Way and Sharpening Stones. This is actually really good, since Sock, the Seal of Command, procs off your weapon damage, so if that is increased, that is very good, and they're actually really cheap to make. Next up we have the Arcane Elixir. This one increases your spell power, or the greater one, I think. This one is nice to have on top damage. It's like a kind of a sharpening stone that increases your consecration and your sock procs a little bit, as well as your judgments. You don't really have to do this, but it's nice to have. And finally, obviously, the Oil of Immolation on stuff that is not Molten Core or Blackrune Lair. It's pretty nice if you want to be extra tryhard and you can actually deal damage to anything next to you, surrounding you. And last but not least, the good old Supreme Power Flask. This one will add 150 spell power. It's really good, no question about it. It's really expensive as well. The alternative is a Flask of Distilled Wisdom, which will increase your mana pool by 2000. It's also very good because then you can spam max rank Consecration and keep Judgment on cooldown. It's up to you. I'm going to try it out in the near future, and maybe I can write in the comments what I liked more. So let's wrap the consumables up real quick. I recommended the Juju Power Strength, the Argent Dawn Food buff, the Fire Water, or I sell the Fire Water and get the Juju Might. I take the Sharpening Stones or Elemental Sharpening Stones, then a Elixir of Mongoose, and the Arcane Elixir on top of that, just to, you know, be a little bit tryhard. Alright guys, and if you have made it this far in the guide, I would already like to thank you for watching. I hope you could get one or two things out of this guide. I've been theorycrafting the shit out of this class for 1 or 2 years now already, and have played Red Paladin on retail as well. Maybe I just want to give you one or two tips and tricks. Playing a Red Paladin is really dependent on always having enough water. Don't underestimate that. When you start out a raid, just get 80 water in your inventory, because better to be safe than sorry. In between the trash pulls, you want to drink as much as you can and as quickly as you can. Even if you just drink up 500, 600 mana, you just want to spam that stuff. For long fights and high HP mobs, if you're not in a raid at the moment, then you should definitely judge Crusader and use Sock. And if you are in a raiding environment and you want to be useful to the raid, just offer for your holy paladins that you are going to be the one that keeps up the judgment of wisdom at all times. They'll love you for it because they don't have to get close to the fucking boss or the trash all the time. You just judge wisdom and then basically pull up the Sock against raid bosses and high HP targets. If you have to focus a lot of whelps or low HP targets, or just want to fuck around a little bit and not worry about it, just pull up Seal of the Crusader. It gives you a lot of attack speed and actually a lot of attack power on top, so that is pretty cool if you just want to switch targets really quick and not wait for a Sock proc. The judgment timing is something that I definitely recommend taking a look at. Maybe you are not doing it correctly. Just, if it's not already obvious, you want to judge right after your last auto attack and not have an auto attack and then wait and then judge, and then your next auto attack goes to waste. So basically what you don't want to do is have any chance of wasting your Sock procs. What you really want to have is auto attack, judge, and then instantly pull up the new Sock. Just a friendly reminder. Sometimes I also get sloppy there, and then I waste 1 or 2 like an auto attack worth of a Sock proc. Another good tip is to place your consecration correctly. Sometimes when you have, I don't know, 2 fire lords and spawns going on, or big packs that you pulled, many ads right there, or the ads are being tanked like, I don't know, 10 yards apart, you can actually run a little bit in between them, places the consecrations there so that it hits both of them. Don't be shy, just run there real quick, drop your consecration correctly, and you have double the damage out of it, and then go back to your normal rotation. When you only have a very few mana breaks, then you definitely want to downrank your consecration. I recommend consecration rank 3 or 2, just to keep that always up. In boss fights you should definitely go for the max rank consecration and keep those mana pots on cooldown. I didn't list them in the consumables list, but it should be obvious. The max rank also counts for your judgment. Just max rank on the bosses all the time and use the mana pots. If you're really going out of mana, then a really good tip is also to use a rank 1 Sock, put that in your action bars and bind it to some key. It's really helpful if you just want to save mana at the moment. Have the rank 1 Sock up. You cannot really judge it because it's gonna judge the rank 1, but it has the same effect like the max rank Seal of Command. If you just auto attack and hope for a few procs while you. And the last tip that I have for you, if you're playing Red Paladin, you will have to give 100% and your A game every raid, and try hard as fuck, because you are always the underdog, but that's what makes it fun, and it's a good way to show those slacking Fury Warriors that you can actually get to them in the damage, and they'll be surprised. So I think this wraps up the guide pretty well. If you have any comments or suggestions, just drop them in the comments. I'll try to correct them also in the comments and maybe the description, and give a little bit of feedback from other Red Paladins, what they think about the guide. As I said, there's a lot of different specs and things that you can change around a little bit. I understand that everyone wants to play a little bit different, but I think this is this is actually my way how I play the Red Paladin. As I said, if you have constructive feedback, just drop it in the comments. If you liked the video, rate it thumbs up. If you didn't like it, rate it thumbs down. Then you are a filthy rogue and that doesn't like Retribution Paladins. I understand that, but that's okay. I'd say thank you very much for watching this video, boys. Have fun with the Retribution Paladin, and that's it from me. Bye bye. Welcome to our ending card. Please like, review and comment, as feedback is always appreciated, and we hope to see you next time.